I mean, I don't know whether they caught him in California or who they served Mickey Rudin. I don't know. Yeah. I do know that...
Dean saw the device aimed at Frank's head. He had exactly 2 seconds to move. Frank was already tangled with 2 men, his back completely exposed. A third figure stood behind him, hand tightening around the object. If Dean didn't dive, if he didn't throw himself across that storage room right now, Frank Sinatra might not walk out alive. It would all happen in a backstage corridor at the Stardust Resort and Casino on a Tuesday night in May 1965. But here's the part nobody expected. They hadn't come for themselves. They had come for Sammy Davis Jr. What Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra did over the next 90 seconds didn't just settle unfinished business. It changed how Las Vegas treated performers forever. And no one ever heard what Dean whispered to Frank when it was over, when both men were hurt, exhausted, and Sammy was waiting in the car outside.
I don't think that whatever the circumstances are, that he ran out on a subpoena.
3 hours earlier, Dean had walked into Frank's suite with a single name written on a piece of paper. Frank was on the phone, still wearing yesterday's tuxedo. When he hung up, Dean silently held up the note. Charlie Rossi. Frank stared at it for 5 long seconds. Then he stood, poured 2 drinks, emptied his in 1 swallow, and said 1 word. Tonight, Dean didn't move. Sammy should be there. No, Frank replied instantly. Sammy is still healing. That's exactly why, Dean answered. It's his fight, too. Frank looked ready to argue, then stopped. Deep down, he knew Dean was right. When they called Sammy, he answered on the first ring. Dean only had to say the name, Sammy Rossi. Silence filled the line. Then Sammy's voice came back quieter than usual. I'm coming. You don't have to, Frank said. Sammy cut him off. I've waited 2 weeks to hear that name. I'm not staying home while you finish this. I'm driving. That one decision revealed everything about the 3 of them. Frank would have gone alone, fast, direct, and furious. Dean would have planned every angle, but Sammy understood something deeper than either of them in that moment. For him, this wasn't about revenge. It was about closure, about standing face to face with the man who decided he didn't belong, about being present when the story finally ended.
I don't know if he was subpoenaed or not.
I don't know either. I don't want to...
I do know that there was a subpoena out. I don't know if they ever caught him in terms of... No, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it as a snide remark.
At 10:30 that night, Sammy pulled his Cadillac to the rear entrance of the Stardust. Dean sat in the passenger seat. Frank was in the back. No one had said much during the drive. Sammy's hand stayed steady on the wheel, but Dean noticed the tension in his jaw. A fading bruise still darkened one eye. A thin white scar marked his lip. You don't have to stay in the car, Dean said quietly. Sammy shook his head. I can't move the way I need to. Ribs still aren't right, but I need to be here. Frank leaned forward between the seats. Sam, if this goes bad, drive away. Don't wait, just go. Sammy turned toward him. His eyes were wet. If it goes bad, I'm coming in. That's not negotiable, Frank snapped. You'll get yourself hurt. Then we all go down together, Sammy said. That's what we do. The car fell silent again. The back entrance was only 20 feet away, a plain metal door beneath a buzzing security light. 2 busboys stepped outside for a smoke, completely unaware that 3 of the biggest stars in Las Vegas were sitting in the dark watching them. When the workers went back inside, Dean slowly opened his door. Frank followed. Just before Frank stepped out, Sammy reached forward and grabbed Dean's arm. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Don't let Frank go too far. If Frank takes this too far, it's over. Dean nodded once. I know. I won't let it happen. And he meant every word. Everything depended on Dean keeping Frank's anger from crossing the line. If Frank lost control, if the night turned irreversible, they would all pay for it. Authorities might overlook plenty in Las Vegas, but they would never ignore a powerful casino owner disappearing after a confrontation with two of the biggest stars in America. No matter how connected Frank was, there were limits. But Dean understood something else too. If Frank made one reckless move, Dean would step in front of the consequences himself. Better Dean Martin takes the fall than Frank Sinatra. Better one career burns than the whole Rat Pack goes down with it. The backstage corridor of the Stardust Resort and Casino smelled like cigarette smoke, fresh paint, and hot stage lights.
Doesn't seem like his style.
No. He'd walk in 17 strong, you know. What do you want?
Dean and Frank walked side by side in silence. They passed dressing rooms, heard a band rehearsing in the distance, and saw stagehands hurrying equipment from one room to another. One worker looked up, recognized them both, then noticed Frank's expression and immediately looked away. Dean had done his homework. Charlie Rossi operated out of an office inside the building and moved through the place like he owned it, because in many ways he did. They reached the third corridor. A storage room door stood half open. Dean raised one hand. Frank stopped instantly. They listened. Rossi's voice came first, sharp, confident, unmistakably Chicago. "We're clear on the Fontainebleau deal? Good." Another voice answered, younger, cautious. "What about the Martin situation?" "What about it?" Rossi said. "He interfered." Rossi laughed. "So what? You think Dean Martin's going to do something? He's a singer. If he keeps making noise, we'll handle him like we handled Davis." Frank's hand moved toward the door. Dean grabbed his wrist and shook his head once. Not yet. Frank's eyes burned with fury, but he held steady. Dean counted silently to 5 while listening. How many voices? 3, maybe 4. No sounds of anyone preparing anything dangerous. No panic, no concern. Rossi felt safe here, surrounded by his own people, inside his own territory. That was good. Arrogance always leaves openings. Dean released Frank's wrist and pushed the door wide open. The storage room was roughly 20 by 30 feet, lined with metal shelves, stacked with boxes, spare cables, and broken equipment. A folding table sat in the center where 3 men had been playing cards. Charlie Rossi stood near the back wall, speaking to 2 others in suits. All 5 men turned at once. Rossi saw who had entered and smiled.
How do you think Sammy should be remembered?
Well, from my standpoint, he should be remembered as one of the finest human beings I ever knew in my life.
"Well," he said, "Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Little late for autographs. This is private." "We know," Dean said as he stepped inside. Frank followed. Dean closed the door behind them. The sound of the latch clicking shut made the room feel suddenly smaller. Rossi's smile faded. "You got a reason for being here?" "Frank doesn't need a reason to go anywhere in Vegas," Frank said. His voice was calm, but Dean heard the steel beneath it. "But since you asked, we came to talk about Sammy Davis Jr. "Sammy Davis Jr. Rossi's face went blank. "Don't know what you're talking about." "You sent 3 men after him 2 weeks ago," Dean said. "Men working for you. Men paid to hurt our friend because of who he is and who he chose to love." "Still don't know what you're talking about," Rossi replied. But his eyes told a different story. The 2 men beside him straightened their posture. The 3 at the card table slowly pushed back their chairs. Dean counted again. 5 in the room. Then footsteps echoed in the hallway. The door opened. 3 more men entered. Larger than Dean or Frank, carrying themselves like trouble came naturally to them. The door shut again. 8 total. Dean and Frank stood in the center, surrounded on all sides.
He is probably one of the most honest individuals I've ever met in my life, and I honor his friendship and what he did for me as a performer, and as a person too, because he put my head straight in a lot of areas.
"Look, Frank," Rossi said, suddenly sounding reasonable. "I don't know where you got your information, but you're mistaken. I don't have problems with Davis. I don't have problems with you either. but you can't walk into my place making accusations. That's disrespectful. Frank took one slow step forward. Here's what's going to happen, he said quietly. So quietly the room leaned in to hear him. You're going to get in your car. You're going to drive to Sammy. You're going to apologize to his face. Then you're going to make it clear to everyone in Las Vegas that Sammy Davis Jr. is off limits. If anyone bothers him again, they answer to me and Dean. He paused. After that, we're done. You stay in your lane, we stay in ours. Rossi stared at him for a second. Then he laughed. Not a nervous laugh, a full laugh, head tilted back, like he'd just heard the funniest joke of the year. When it ended, he looked at Frank with something close to pity. You really think you can walk in here and tell me what to do? He stepped closer. You think because you sing pretty songs that you run this town? Rossi spread his arms and looked around the room. This is my city, Frankie, not yours, not Dean's. His smile returned, colder now. Mine. Now picture the room from above for 1 second. 8 men around the edges. Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra in the center, standing back to back. 8 men formed a tightening circle around them. Charlie Rossi stood near the back wall, calm and confident. The exit was blocked by 3 of his men. Metal shelving lined 2 sides of the room, creating narrow lanes where any struggle could turn chaotic fast. Dean Martin knew he had maybe 5 seconds to choose. Try to talk it down, stall for time, hope cooler heads prevailed, or accept that this had already gone too far and move first. He looked at Frank Sinatra. Frank looked back. Nothing was spoken, but Dean understood immediately. The decision had already been made. This was never ending quietly. Frank moved first, not toward Rossi, but toward the nearest man. He struck so quickly the man never even raised his hands. One clean shot, sharp and direct, and the man dropped to the floor. Then the room erupted. 2 men lunged at Dean. He ducked beneath the first, drove his elbow hard into the second man's midsection, then swept his legs out from under him. The man crashed backward. Dean heard Frank grunt behind him. He turned and saw Frank dealing with 2 men at once. One had him trapped from behind, while the other drove heavy blows into his side. Dean started toward them. Then movement at the edge of the room made him pivot. A 4th man had pulled a weighted club from inside his jacket. Dean spotted a loose metal pipe on the floor and grabbed it just as the man swung. The impact rang through the room like a bell. Dean blocked the strike, then drove the pipe forward into the attacker's stomach hard enough to fold him in half. Across the room, Frank had broken free. Now he was exchanging shots with both men, blood already visible on his lip. His tuxedo shirt was torn at the shoulder. One of the men landed a hard blow to Frank's ribs and sent him stumbling sideways. Dean saw his chance. He hurled the pipe across the room. It struck one of Frank's attackers in the back of the head. Not enough to drop him, but enough to make him turn. Frank used the opening instantly. He answered with a rapid combination that would have impressed any prize fighter. The man hit the floor and didn't get back up. That left 1 man on Frank and 3 on Dean. The man from the shelving unit had recovered. 2 others were closing in beside him. The storage room had become a cage. The air was thick with sweat, noise, and panic. Dean's breathing was heavy now. His knuckles were split open. His shoulder throbbed where someone had clipped him moments earlier. But what happened next is where everything changed. Dean was focused on the 3 men moving toward him when he heard Frank shout. Not words, just a raw sound of anger and pain. Dean turned his head just enough to see. Frank was still standing, still fighting, but slower now. Guard tighter, movements more defensive. And behind him, near the back shelving unit where he had stayed out of the action, one of Rossi's men had pulled out a handgun. The man wasn't aiming yet. He was lifting it slowly, steadying it, taking his time because he believed he had all the time in the world. Frank never saw him. He was too busy blocking the man in front of him. Dean had maybe 2 seconds. 2 seconds to cover 15 feet. 2 seconds to get between Frank and that shot. 2 seconds to decide how far loyalty really went. He moved. No hesitation, no calculation, no thought about odds or consequences. He launched himself across the room, driving off both legs, arms outstretched. The 3 men reaching for him were too slow. He was past them before they understood what he was doing. The gunman noticed Dean at the last possible moment and tried to shift his aim. Too late! Dean was already airborne, already committed. He crashed shoulder first into the man and sent both of them slamming into the metal shelving. Boxes rained down. Steel shrieked against concrete. The gun fired. The sound inside the enclosed room was deafening. Dean felt a burst of heat flash across his face. Then he and the gunman hit the floor in a tangle of limbs. Dean's mind narrowed to one thought only: get control of it. Don't let it happen again. His hand found the man's wrist and clamped down. The gunman tried to yank free, but Dean had leverage now and all his weight pressing down. He slammed the man's hand against the concrete floor. Once. Twice. The handgun flew loose, skidding across the room until it spun into the far wall. Then Frank appeared above them. His face was cut open. Blood ran from his eyebrow down the side of his cheek. But his eyes were clear, sharp, locked in. He grabbed the gunman by the shirt front, hauled him upright, and struck him once, just once, but with everything he had left. The man collapsed instantly. Dean pushed himself upright, chest heaving. His hands shook violently now, adrenaline rattling through every muscle. "Where did it go?" Dean asked. "The shot," Frank said, breathing hard. "Wall, I think. Maybe the shelves." "You hit?" "No." Frank looked him over. "You?" "I'm fine." They turned together. The room had gone silent. The 3 men Dean Martin had been dealing with stood completely still now. The men Frank Sinatra had dropped stayed where they were, with no interest in getting back up. And Charlie Rossi, the man who had filled the room with swagger only minutes earlier, was backed against the wall, pale and shaken, every trace of confidence gone. Near the door, the last man still standing slowly raised both hands, the universal sign that the night was over. "We're done," he said quickly. "We're done. You 2 are out of your minds." Dean began walking toward Rossi. Each step was slow, measured, deliberate. His tuxedo was destroyed now, jacket torn, shirt drenched with sweat, marked with blood that may have been his or someone else's. His knuckles were split, his shoulder stiff, and his breathing still heavy. He stopped 3 feet away. "Charlie Rossi," Dean said quietly, "you're going to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say." Rossi tried to hold Dean's gaze. He couldn't. His eyes kept drifting away, searching for any exit that no longer existed. "You just attacked 8 of my people," Rossi said. But the words came out shaky and thin. "You think you're walking out of here?" Dean didn't blink. "We already walked in," he said. "Walking out is the easy part." Then he leaned closer and lowered his voice so only Rossi could hear the next part. "Tomorrow you're going to find Sammy Davis Jr. You're going to apologize, not through a middleman, not with a message, not with a letter, face to face." Rossi swallowed hard. "And then," Dean continued, "you're going to spread the word across this town that Sammy is protected. Anyone who bothers him again, anyone who even thinks about it, answers directly to Frank and me." Rossi's jaw tightened. Some pride was still left in him. "And if I don't?" he asked. Dean straightened. "Then we come back." The room seemed to grow quieter. "And next time," Dean said, "we don't come alone." He pointed toward the hallway outside. "We bring every headline act in Las Vegas with us. Every singer, every comic, every musician, every dancer. Then we tell them exactly what you did. We tell them how a man was targeted because of who he was. Dean took one more step forward. You think you own this town, Charlie, but this town runs on the people who fill the showrooms every night. He tapped Rossi lightly in the chest, and we're the ones they listen to. That was the real turning point, not the chaos in the storage room, not the bruises, not the wreckage scattered across the floor. It was this moment. Dean Martin, the smooth star who always made life look effortless, standing there in a ruined tuxedo, face marked up, calmly explaining power to a man who had mistaken fear for control. Rossi's expression changed 3 times in a matter of seconds. First anger, then calculation, then fear, finally something close to acceptance. He looked past Dean at the room behind him, at the men still on the floor, at Frank Sinatra standing silent with blood on his cheek and fury still burning in his eyes, at the handgun resting against the far wall, at the complete collapse of the authority he thought could never be challenged. Okay, Rossi said at last. Okay, I'll do it tomorrow, face to face. Not good enough, Frank said from behind Dean. Both men turned. Frank stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. Tonight, Rossi blinked. It's nearly midnight. I don't care if it's 4 in the morning, Frank replied. You're going to find Sammy tonight. You're going to apologize tonight. And we're going to be there to make sure you mean it. Dean felt Frank come up beside him. Together they stood shoulder to shoulder, 2 entertainers in torn tuxedos who looked nothing like stars in that moment, and everything like men who had reached their limit. Rossi looked from one to the other and finally understood something simple and brutal. He had no choices left, so they walked him out through the backstage corridor of the Stardust Resort and Casino. Frank on one side, Dean on the other. None of Rossi's men followed. When they stepped out into the parking lot, Sammy Davis Jr. was no longer inside the Cadillac. He was standing beside it, waiting. Dean Martin didn't know when Sammy had gotten out. He didn't know how long he had been standing there in the dark. But one look at Sammy's face told him enough. He had heard everything. The crash of the struggle, the shouting, the single gunshot echoing through the back corridors, and he had likely been only seconds away from running inside himself. Sammy, Dean said. His voice came out rougher than he expected, throat raw from shouting and exhaustion. It's over. Sammy's eyes moved from Dean to Frank Sinatra, to the man standing between them. Even in the dim yellow light of the parking lot, Dean could see the recognition settle across Sammy's face. He understood exactly who this was, what he had done, and why he had been brought out there. Charlie Rossi, under Sammy's stare, seemed to shrink by the second. You've got something to say to our friend, Frank said quietly. His hand rested on Rossi's shoulder, not gripping, not forcing, but making it very clear that leaving was not an option. Rossi swallowed hard. I apologize, he said, for what happened. It was out of line. Sammy didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. He simply stood there, face unreadable, one eye still shadowed by the bruising from what had happened 2 weeks earlier. That's not enough, Dean said. Rossi turned slightly. Be specific, Dean continued. Tell him exactly what you're apologizing for. Rossi's jaw tightened. Every word looked painful. I ordered 3 men to go after you, he said slowly, to hurt you, because I didn't want you performing in Las Vegas. He stopped, then forced out the rest. Because I was a bigot, and I was wrong. Sammy took 1 step forward. Rossi flinched instinctively, but Sammy never raised a hand. He only looked at him, really looked at him, for a long, uncomfortable moment. You're damn right you were wrong, Sammy said at last. His voice was calm, controlled, but every word landed with weight. I've been performing in this city for 10 years. He pointed back toward the glowing skyline. I've packed rooms. I've made people laugh. I've helped people forget their troubles for a few hours at a time. Another step closer. I've brought money into this town and joy into those casinos. Then his voice hardened. And you decided I didn't belong here because of the color of my skin. Rossi said nothing. I want to hear you say it, Sammy continued. I want to hear you say that I belong here. The parking lot was silent except for the distant hum of air conditioning units and muffled casino noise drifting through the night. That I have every right to perform in Las Vegas the same as any white entertainer. Rossi stared at the pavement. That who I married is none of your business. Sammy's eyes never left him. Say it. Rossi looked like he wanted to be anywhere else on earth, but with Frank and Dean on either side of him and Sammy directly in front of him, there was nowhere to go. You belong here, Rossi said. His voice barely carried. You have every right to perform here. He swallowed again. Who you married is your business. The words sounded dragged out of him one by one, but they were spoken. Sammy nodded slowly. Good. Then he leaned in just enough to make sure Rossi heard the next part clearly. And if anyone working for you, anyone connected to you, comes near me again. They won't, Rossi said quickly. I'll make sure of it. You're protected, all of you. Sammy looked at Dean, then Frank. Both men gave a small nod. It was done. Not perfect, not clean, not something any of them would celebrate, but done. Rossi would keep his word now because for the first time he understood the cost of breaking it. They watched him walk away across the lot. His shoulders were hunched. His pace was slow. Every part of him looked like a man who had just lost something he could never recover. When he disappeared around the corner of the building, Frank finally sagged a little, as if his body had been waiting for permission. You okay? Dean asked. Yeah, Frank said. You? Dean looked down at himself. Torn jacket, blood on his shirt, scraped knuckles, a shoulder that would ache for days. I'll live. Then both men turned toward Sammy. He was crying, not loudly, not dramatically, just tears running steadily down his face in the soft parking lot light. He didn't bother hiding them. Thank you, Sammy said. His voice cracked on the second word. I don't know how to... He stopped, shook his head, and tried again. Just thank you. Frank stepped forward and pulled him into a careful embrace, mindful of Sammy's healing ribs. We're family, Sam, Frank said softly. You don't thank family. Dean placed a hand on Sammy's shoulder. It's over, he said. You're safe now. The three men stood there together for nearly a full minute. 3 stars in ruined tuxedos under the Nevada night sky. No one said anything. They just stood in the glow of the casino lights with the sound of distant slot machines and rooftop vents humming around them, each understanding that something larger than one night had shifted. Finally, Sammy stepped back and wiped his face with his sleeve. We should probably get cleaned up. Yeah, Frank said. Then he turned to Dean. You jumped in front of a gun. I moved, Dean said with a shrug, trying to sound casual, though his hands were still trembling. I saw it, Frank replied. You would have done the same. Frank gave him a long look. I know. Then a pause. But you did it first. They got back into the Cadillac, Sammy driving, Frank in the back seat, Dean riding shotgun. No one spoke much on the drive back to the Sands Hotel and Casino. What was left to say? They had walked into a storage room and faced 8 men. Dean had thrown himself into danger to protect Frank Sinatra. Frank had come face to face with his own rage. Sammy Davis Jr. had received something he deserved long ago, an apology, respect, and recognition that he belonged. And Las Vegas would never look quite the same again. Not perfect, not healed overnight, but changed. When they arrived back at the Sands Hotel and Casino, Frank stepped out first. Then he turned back toward Dean Martin. Dean. Dean looked up. What? Frank lowered his voice. If you hadn't stopped me tonight, I would have gone too far. My life would be over right now. He paused. So I guess I owe you twice. Once for protecting me, and once for protecting me from myself. Dean gave a small nod. I know. Frank nodded back and walked away. Sammy drove Dean to his suite and helped him inside. Only then did he notice the cut on Dean's forehead. He disappeared into the bathroom, returned with a wet towel, and gently cleaned the blood away. I meant what I said, Sammy told him. Thank you. You don't have to keep saying it. I know, Sammy said with a smile, but I'm going to anyway. Then he added quietly, for tonight, for before tonight, for always showing up. Dean caught his wrist lightly. Sam, we're good. We've always been good. Sammy smiled, that bright smile audiences knew so well, and headed for the door. After he left, Dean poured a drink and sat alone on the couch. His whole body ached. Tomorrow would bring bruises, questions, maybe trouble. But tonight he was only tired. He thought about the boy he used to be before fame, before tuxedos, before becoming Dean Martin. That boy knew how hard the world could be. That boy knew sometimes you didn't get choices. You just got moments that tested who you were. And tonight, that part of him had shown up again, not for himself, for his friends. The phone rang. Dean answered. It's Frank, came the voice on the other end. Can't sleep. Me neither. A pause. Then Frank said something he almost never said aloud. I love you, man. You know that, right? Dean smiled tiredly. I know. Love you too. Get some sleep. When the call ended, Dean looked out at the lights of Las Vegas. The city kept glowing as if nothing had happened. Soon the sun would rise, cards would shuffle, curtains would open, and the shows would go on. But something mattered now that hadn't before. 3 friends had stood together and drawn a line. They had chosen loyalty over fear. And that kind of brotherhood leaves a mark no city can erase. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to hear what happened 3 months later, when Charlie Rossi tried one last move that nearly changed everything, tell me in the comments. See you in the next video.